Welcome to Theory of Music, Grade 1, Lesson 4 with Franz Devantier. In this lesson, we will be looking at the bass or F-Clef and its notes and introduce the Grand Clef or the Grand Staff. The bass or F-Clef was originally a capital F. The two stems of the letter F marked the fourth line as F, the fourth line of the staff, that is. The bass clef is for the bass notes or the lowest notes. The notes in the bass clef are lower than the treble clef. The modern bass clef has a curved line with two dots or dashes. You need to make sure that the dots are on either side of the fourth line from the bottom. The dots fix this fourth line from the bottom as an F. The notes on the lines of the bass clef. Notice how the fourth line from the bottom is an F. You can memorize them using the phrase, "Good boys do fine always," or make up something similar for yourself. G, B, D, F, A. The notes in the spaces of the bass clef, A, C, E, G, you can memorize them by thinking of ace G or something similar. You may have wondered, would it be possible to add a note just above or below the staff? The answer is yes. The notes in the bass clef will then look like this. An added note at the bottom, so the first note will be F, and an added note at the top, so the first note, the top note will be a B. So all the notes that we have on the bass clef would be F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. When you see this, you may ask, is it possible to add more notes above or below the staff? The answer is yes. These notes will be on or between or against ledger lines. So let's add a note at the bottom, and we add the E below the staff. And if we add a line, a ledger line with a note on it at the top of the staff or above the staff, we get to middle C. You may remember middle C, we've been talking about the special note right in the middle of the piano keyboard is middle C. So that's how we write the middle C in the bass clef. One ledger line above the bass clef, that is it, the magical note, middle C. Now we know how to write middle C in the bass clef. This is the magic of ledger lines. Remember, we talked about middle C, the middle note on the piano. Here it is, middle C, the ledger line above the bass clef. Can we also write middle C using the treble clef? Yes, we can. It looks like this, and you'll see that it's the ledger line below the staff of the treble clef. In summary, we can add notes above and below the treble clef and above and below the bass clef. The second note that is added above or below the staff is added using a ledger line. The notes that we know on the treble and bass clefs are, in the treble, with our added notes above and below, middle C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. And in the bass clef, below the staff, we start with E on the ledger line, F just below the staff, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, middle C. Middle C is at the bottom of the treble clef. Middle C is at the top of the bass clef. This provides a way to link the two staffs together, the staff with the treble clef and the staff with the bass clef. And we get something that we call the grand staff. Piano music is typically written on the grand staff. It's also very useful for writing harmonies. All the notes that we have learned so far comes to close to 3.5 octaves. These notes are almost the exact range of the guitar. They are in fact 1 octave lower than the written range of the guitar, but the guitar transposes down an octave, so these notes are in actual fact the notes of the guitar, starting with the low E. The only notes missing are the B flat and the B natural right at the top. The written range of the guitar, 3.5 octaves. Typically, the guitar is written in the treble clef. Now you see the very high notes are not played that much, and so even although there's 5 ledger lines, we don't use that much. We play typically up to the E with 3 ledger lines, and below the staff 3 ledger lines as well to the E just below the 3rd ledger line. 3 ledger lines are manageable, and so this arrangement of writing the guitar in the treble clef is not perfect, but it is manageable. That is the written range of the guitar. Now, because the guitar sounds an octave lower than written, this is the actual range of the guitar, and we put it in the bass clef. You see the first few notes are all right, but afterwards when we get to the high notes, 7 ledger lines is not really workable, and even that high E is 5 ledger lines. So it's not actually practical. And so if we go back to the treble clef, we see that it's more possible on the treble clef. Bass clef, the top notes are a little bit too high. Let's put it that way. The top notes are just a bit too high. My solution would be to use both clefs and to write the music in the actual sound of the notes instead of transposing it an octave out. And then you just change the clefs as need be. If you use it this way, you will never need more than 1 ledger line. As a composer, you may choose this option. Eventually, you'll get into composing music for the guitar. So as a composer, you may choose to write the music with this scheme instead of the traditional scheme. Traditionally, all the notes of the guitar are written in the treble clef, which is an octave higher than they actually sound. Let's just go back and have a look how they've done the notation on the guitar. We see these are the way that the notes are written on the treble clef. It's not perfect, but it's workable because typically it doesn't go beyond 3 ledger lines, which is acceptable. But it actually sounds in the bass clef, but if we put it in a bass clef, there's just too many ledger lines and it's not practical. And so the treble clef is a better solution if you were choosing between the treble clef and the bass clef. My proposal or my solution is to simply use both clefs, write the music in the actual range of the sounds instead of writing them an octave out, and just change the clefs in line as and when you need it. Up to now, we have only looked at the white notes on the keyboard. You may have been wondering about the black notes that fall in between most of the white notes. Now, if you look at the keyboard below, you'll see that there's a lot of white notes, and then at the top, the smaller notes are the black notes, and you'll notice that they actually are placed in between the white notes, in between most of the white notes, but not all of the white notes. And if you just look a little bit carefully, you see that the black notes come in patterns. It comes in a pattern of 2 black notes together, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Just notice that. Now this middle C that we have been speaking about, if you look at the keyboard, you see where there are those 2 black notes together. Now if you go to the left of those 2 black notes together, that first white note, just to the left of it, is middle C, if you're more or less in the middle of the keyboard. So if you're wondering where middle C is, that's it. 2 black notes together, just to the left of it, middle C. There you go. Another way to say this, what we've learned so far, just the white notes, is to say, I've only described the tonal scheme using the key of C, which has no accidentals, or looking at the keyboard, we could say it has no black notes. Now, looking at the keyboard and seeing the black and the white notes, keep in mind that the earlier keyboards, if you go back a few hundred years, the white notes were actually brown, so they were a dark brown. And what is now the black notes today were actually made out of ivory or light-colored wood. So it was originally, the keyboard was the other way around. Now we talk about the white notes and the black notes. Perhaps we should say on the modern keyboard, just to keep it accurate. So in reality, I have described one of the 12 possible tonal schemes using just the white notes. So there's actually 12, and I've showed you only one. I can't wait to show you the rest of them. Thank you for joining me for Grade 1, Lesson 4 of Theory of Music. In this lesson, we have covered the bass or F-Clef and its notes, and we've introduced the grand staff or the Grand Clef. We have explained music theory as relevant to the guitar, as well as to the traditional keyboard methods. In Lesson 5, we will start exploring accidentals. The accidentals are in actual fact the black notes, and we'll be moving towards understanding all of the 12 tonalities and not just the one. See you in Lesson 5.